Welcome to Talk the Walk. I'm Jaynie Morris, and I'm delighted to have your company either again or if this is the very first time that you've tuned in to Talk the Walk podcast. Welcome. My intention, hopefully, for you is to feel that you've learned something new, that you've heard someone's story that holds some sort of inspiration for you, that brings an idea to you. And most importantly, it actually holds value for you. Now, my guest today was born and raised in Adelaide in South Australia. And she moved to Kenya at the age of 21 after finishing university. She was there for approximately 10 years, and her career then took her to Malaysia, Qatar, Rwanda, and basically all over. She has 4 children, 2 adopted Kenyan daughters, and 2 other beautiful children. Her story is complex, it's intriguing, and it's inspirational. Chief Engagement Officer and founder of InterEd Africa, Susan Knapp, welcome to Talk the Walk.
Oh, thank you so much. What a humbling introduction.
Now, Susan, this is the first time for us to sort of meet like this. Our paths crossed through social media groups, communities of women, which I think I've always had the long-held belief that people come into your lives for a reason and a season. And I think that your story and being my guest today, I'm so excited that we did have our paths cross recently so that I could actually share you with the world, basically.
Oh.
So I mentioned then that your story is complex and intriguing. So let's go back a little bit to what I started out with here, where I mentioned that you were born in Adelaide in South Australia, but then you moved to Kenya at the age of 21. What was the motivating factor for that?
Do you know, to be honest, the motivating factor didn't really become conscious to me until 3 years ago when I actually returned to Adelaide. And then I did a lot of healing and a lot of self-discovery. And so I sort of found the motive then. But at the time, the sort of practical reason why I went is because I had a friend who was going to China as a leader on a teenage exchange program. And the same program offered people to go to Kenya. And I just knew deep within my soul that I'd always wanted to go to Africa. And this was a great opportunity. So that's what physically took me there. And I subsequently stayed there for a very long time.
Well, for 10 years, apparently, according to my research. So that was a very long time.
It was 10 years consistently, Jaynie, but I actually really identify Kenya with being my home. And so even though I was physically there for 10 years, I've run operations out of Kenya for the last 25.
Right. Now, when you were coming to the end of that first 10 years then, your career actually took you to Malaysia and Qatar and Rwanda. Give us a bit of information about that. What did that involve?
Well, initially at the end of the 10 years, it was potentially looking like we were moving back to Australia. I had adopted my first child, who was now 2. It was the end of the 90s, and there was some volatility, political volatility that was happening in Kenya. So we thought we would come back to Australia. And I got back here and just didn't cope with lots and lots of different things. So I'm a teacher by profession. And after spending 2 years back in Adelaide with a 2-year-old, I decided that I was going to go and live in countries where I also had access to greater domestic help, a different sort of what I perceived as professional credibility. And so that's what's literally taken me on these journeys was I identified a lifestyle that I really wanted for myself and my children, which, contrary to what many people in Australia believe, I didn't feel was on offer here in Australia. And so I sought it elsewhere.
Right. So when you were in Qatar, when you were working in Qatar, you were 6 months pregnant with one of your children, and then you got fired. Can you tell us about the intriguing story that ensued from that moment?
Well, the company that I worked for was an oil company, and they brought in a new director who was doing a massive overhaul of staff. So there were 50 of us who were all let go of. And they were fair. They gave us plenty of notice. The complicated part that ended up being a triple complication in my scenario was the labour laws in the country at the time didn't allow you to change from one job to another. So everybody else was in a position to be able to leave the country and go to jobs elsewhere. I had a bank loan in the country that I'd taken out, which was also a really common thing. And that was connected to some mortgages that I had here in Australia. Because I had that loan and it was over a longer time period, I wasn't able to pay that off. So they have some other rules that they put in place, which is you then have to go through a court case in Qatar, and you are not allowed to leave the country while you have this court case. In addition, I was pregnant. And again, the intricacy of their labour laws, which can be a bit nonsensical for people who are not used to it. When you have a child in Qatar, I don't know what it's like now, this was 7 years ago, but when you have a child to a non-working mother, they're technically illegal in terms of getting their documentation. So yeah, there were many, many levels that needed to be sorted out, but we sorted them out, and we actually love Qatar very, very deeply, and we have been back since twice, of which people were quite shocked that we did that as well. But yeah, we actually have no regrets. It was a really difficult time at the time as well. I had to put my children on a plane to Australia. Subsequently didn't live with them for 3 years.
Wow.
My son was 5 when he got on a plane, and came back to live with me when he was 8.5.
Wow.
But we're very much believers in it is what it is at the time. We didn't overanalyze it too much. We made the most of it, and we have a lot of gratitude.
And that's always the best outcome for any situation in life, isn't it? That you come to that place, and clearly that's what happened with you there. In 2017, you lived back in Australia.
Yes, so I sort of came the long way back, yes. And
Yes,
by
yes.
2017, I was back.
So something happened in 2017 that changed a lot of things for you, in regards to what happened with your husband in particular. Do you want to share a little bit about that for us?
Sure, I'm happy to do that. So I had met my second husband in Qatar, and he's the father of my youngest child. And the relationship had been very volatile. It had involved different levels of physical, emotional violence. And I was sort of constantly holding on to this belief that if we moved to the next place, things would get better. And he was really desperate to live in Australia. I wasn't desperate to live in Australia. And so the relationship just sort of got worse and worse, and I kept trying to salvage it. We moved together from Qatar to Rwanda to Malaysia, and then finally ended up here in Australia. And when we got to Australia, he was on a visit visa, which meant we'd agreed, well, I thought we'd agreed that he would stay home and take care of our youngest while I went back into teaching. And that was really, really, really challenging for him. He desperately wanted a visa. He desperately wanted to stay, and he was stopping at nothing to make that happen for himself. So he lost his passport, believing that I stole it. And then he just tried lots of different things. Subsequently, he got some advice that led him to believe that he could be given a visa, sort of fast track his visa by claiming that he was a victim of domestic violence. And so we had an argument. I smashed his phone, which in Australia is actually considered domestic violence. And he went to the police station. He reported that at the police station. I had police come into my classroom, take me out. I subsequently went through a court case in Far North Queensland and was convicted of violence against him.
Wow.
So I currently sit on a 5-year good behaviour bond. And
Wow.
you know, it's really, really taught me a lot. At the time, I was just reduced into sort of an energetic coma, literally, because I felt like I'd come back to my country where I believed that laws were here to serve the people and to serve me.
Yes.
And having had these, I mean, I've had lots of crazy experiences abroad, but when you get home, you think it's all going to be okay.
Yes.
And I remember when the judge, you have some choices of what you can do with regards to the conviction that you're going to be issued with.
Yes.
And the one, I just literally collapsed under it. And yeah, but
Wow.
again, it's taught me a lot. It's really, really taught me a lot. And I don't like to see myself as a victim. That was sort of a really low turning point, and it was like, you've got two choices. You can either be a victim or a victor. And I had very young children, and so being a victim was just not even part of the agenda.
So let's use that as a great segue into what you did next, because I think this is what is the complex side of your life in those years. In what I've been looking at what you do now has actually fueled the power that you now have in your new role. In 2019, you went back to Kenya and you built 2 schools. Tell us about this.
So I think, and I don't want to sound cliche, but it's almost like the breakdown becomes the breakthrough. And coming back to Australia was actually, I don't even know why consciously, but it was really about conquering one of my greatest fears and actually coming back and seeing if I could make it here. And so when I came back, I spent a lot of time healing and I'd been doing that for a long time. There's a beautiful line in one of the lessons in A Course in Miracles that says, I can choose to see peace in this.
Yes.
And I embodied that with just every cell in my body. And that really helped me to heal from some of the trauma. So I also decided that I really wanted my children to understand that we're here to be of service to others. And a small amount of money came into our zone, and we sort of had the option, perhaps we could have bought a house, but instead I decided the money had been given with the intention of making the lives of my children lighter. And so the way that I interpreted doing that was by taking them back to Kenya, which is their history. All 4 of my children have very strong ties with Kenya, and actually manifesting this project, which we created 2 schools, very, very simple schools in resource poor communities. But the idea again was that we would have these simple structures, but inside the structures, there would be just this energy of possibility. And so, yeah, so the kids have been part of that from the ground up.
And so how does that look? What is Into Ed Africa?
So Into Ed Africa is a bit of an evolving process. If we look at the DNA of the seed of Into Ed Africa, it is the DNA holds healing, transformation, and education. So within that DNA, everything of Intuit Africa has manifested from that. So it's sort of an external manifestation of my healing, my transformation. But what it physically looks like is 2 schools that are made out of just corrugated iron. One school is in a semi-rural Maasai community about 30 kilometres outside of Nairobi. And the other school is a 3-story building in a slum in Nairobi, where we have no electricity, no running water. The schools got closed down for most of 2020 because of COVID, and that actually became a beautiful turning point for the transformation and education part of what we do, because we had to be really innovative, and we created a dance troupe where the children have learnt how to dance, how to sing, to do poetry and drama and drumming, and to be models, and they've created sustainable fashion from rubbish, from the rubbish dump. And those skills that those children have learnt, they would never have learnt had they been sitting at a desk from 8 o'clock until 5 o'clock every day of their academic lives, because there just wouldn't have been time. And these are skills that are life skills and can potentially take them on to doing some really phenomenal stuff. And we did the same thing with, we're in the process of publishing a collection of children's storybooks that have been illustrated by those children in the slums in Nairobi. And so we've started a books for book program where the books that we sell here give a book to a child who has illustrated them. And we did our first delivery a couple of weeks ago, and it was extremely humbling, because these are kids who live in 1 metre by 1 metre corrugated iron with maybe 5 or 6 or 10 people inside it. They don't own very much at all, and they got this beautiful book with these colourful illustrations of their work and their story. And I've just had the most amazing feedback. One little girl said, "I couldn't imagine I could have produced anything so beautiful."
Wow.
And one of the mums said her daughter has just holds this book like a teddy bear. She sleeps with it. She takes it everywhere she goes.
Wow. That's what you want these gifts to pass on forward too, isn't it? You want to hear those stories back, to know that the stories that you're creating there and sharing with others is actually doing.
Yes.
Now, well, in amongst all of that, your son Marley.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's created his own little business, hasn't he? Can you tell us about 99% Marley? It's quite intriguing.
So it is such a complex story, Jaynie, isn't it? Yes. So Marley is now 11. When he was in grade 3, he came home one day and said, "Mum, I'm too stupid to go to school." And I said, "Okay, let's just sit with that for a moment." And it made me have to sit with everything that I knew as a teacher, and what we perceived as our best intentions for children as teachers were perhaps reinforcing something really different within those kids who maybe needed a bit of extra reading support or spelling support or what have you. He was really attaching that to his identity and his self-worth. So we decided that we would start homeschooling. And through that homeschooling, Marley and my younger daughter, Amalia, who is 7, started their own social enterprises. So again, with that real intention of starting from when they're really young, of understanding they're here to be of service to others, and you don't have to sacrifice anything about yourself or your best interests to still be of service to others. So 99% Marley created 3 hashtags, which are 99% kindness, 99% gratitude, and 99% courage. He created a line of clothing that has the hashtags on the back, his logo on the front, and he has a podcast called 99 Seconds with Marley, where in 99 seconds he interviews various people about his 3 hashtags and their feelings about them. And the intention of his business is really that when you wear this merchandise, you embrace those virtues.
How beautiful.
It's very beautiful.
How beautiful is that?
And Marley has the first thing that he did with his profits was to buy a sewing machine for the students in Kenya, which then his sister now uses to make employ women in Kenya to make sanitary pads. Marley has also paid for the kids to have dance lessons in Kenya. So yeah, circular economy.
It's fantastic. This is so inspiring.
Oh, you're so kind.
This is absolutely wonderful. You mentioned there that one of your daughters has got her business, which is making so explain to us about that. Sanitary pads for girls in Kenya or in Africa as a whole?
At the moment, it's just in Kenya, Jaynie.
Right.
So my second daughter is adopted from Kenya, and she's just this amazing. I was separated from her for the 3-year time period. She then started making some decisions about her life in that perhaps she didn't want to be here anymore. And so we worked through some of those processes. They ignited conversations about her conception, her abandonment, and then the reason why she and I met, which we really believe was to activate her flow. And so she was back in Kenya with us in 2019, 2020. And where we've built one of our schools is actually walking distance from the orphanage that I adopted her from. And she discovered that many girls in the community were not able to go to school because of not having access to period products. And so she then rationalised of what's the point of having a school if girls can't attend. So she saw that she could do something about that. She seeded a little fundraiser here in Adelaide, raised enough money to employ a lady in Kenya. She has subsequently grown her tiny organisation. She holds little speaking engagements in people's houses. People donate to her cause. She has designed and printed a series of colouring in books that she sells to raise money for her organisation. And she has currently given 4 ladies jobs in Kenya, and she has made and distributed 355 sustainable sanitary packs to girls who, as she says, could have been her.
Wow, that's I'm the hairs are standing on their end of my arms here. It's so empowering what your children are doing, all 4 of your children. It's a huge credit to you, especially with, I think one of the great messages, and I hope that our listeners are receiving this as I am as well, is that throughout everything that you've been sharing with us, and again, thank you for being so open and honest with us about your whole story, is that everything that you have gone through and your children have gone through has always come with a positive outcome that then has fed into supporting the greater good. And I think that's an absolute credit to you.
Oh, you're so kind. I really appreciate hearing that.
It is no. It's an absolute credit. Where to from here for Intuit Africa?
Intuit Africa. So this has actually been solely funded by myself and my children. And I think what we've done really successfully is managed to create some different ideas of how we operate in Kenya, also how we operate in Australia. And so now we're really understanding that to leverage that, we need to seek external support for potential funding. And so we're looking to register. We're currently going through the process of registering as a charity. We're going to be sort of a combined charity / social enterprise model of our operations. Our books have been, we've just signed a contract with an international publisher to publish our collection of children's books. And yeah, we're actually quite organic in how we move forward. We don't place too many expectations on the outcome. It's so much about the process and the journey, and the outcome is a bit of a bonus. So we don't like to be too linked to a particular outcome. And that, I think, has created an enormous amount of win for us without any anxiety or stress.
Susan, if you had an 8-year-old Susan in front of you right now, what advice would you give to her?
I've actually been thinking about this quite recently, and I would give the advice that you are worthy. Your purpose will be recognized, and through your healing, others will heal.
Beautiful. Fantastic advice. Absolutely. Not just for an 8-year-old Susan. However, I think for all of us. That's perfect advice. Susan, how can people find out more about Into It Africa and 99% Marley and all of that? How can they find out more?
So the easiest way to find the condensed version of us is on our website, which is intoedafrica.org. Under that, you'll find connections to the work that 3 of my children are doing, along with connections to our socials. The kids all have their own socials, including my 7-year-old, who sells candles and soaps, and she's also a fashion designer. So they're all there.
You have one heck of a talent in that whole family, don't you? I mean,
you know, and I think that because when we lived separately, and I missed 3 years of Mother's Day and 3 years of birthdays and 3 years of Christmases, we actually made a really conscious decision to make every single day as joyful and purposeful and together as is possible. So we do really manifest that through living that as our lived experience, and we have lots of fun.
Well, we can certainly feel that through this interview. That's for sure. Susan, thank you so much for joining us on our Talk the Walk podcast. It's been an absolute delight to get to know you and also get an insight into what you're doing and what your family's doing. And congratulations on it all. And we're looking forward to following everything that you do moving forward in the future as well.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really grateful for your time.
No, it's our pleasure. And if you've enjoyed this Talk the Walk podcast just as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you, well, then make sure that you like it and share it with others, spread the word, and remember to subscribe. Go to sheroesunlimited.com, go to our website, subscribe onto the podcast so you never miss an episode. And below where you're listening to this podcast right now on whatever your favorite app is, including iTunes, Apple and Spotify, all the details on Into Ed Africa, as well as 99% Marley and all the other organisations that Susan Knapp's family have got. All of those details will be there. So it's been an absolute delight to have your company today on Talk the Walk podcast, and I look forward to you joining us when next we bring another intriguing, inspiring and empowering guest just for your listening pleasure. My name's Jaynie Morris, and wherever you are in this absolutely fabulous world of ours, I hope you're having a beautiful day.